One of the things that's so interesting about payments is it's very fast moving. And not only are we looking in big markets like the US, but we're also supporting our customers who are launching in Indonesia, launching in Latin America, exploring net new alternative payment methods. And so we're working closely with our core payment processors and also new payment partners to help support that global expansion.
You're listening to Retail Remix, your inside access to candid conversations with the people shaping retail's future. Here's your host, Alicia Esposito.
When I started covering e-commerce payment on retail touchpoints, I would say it was kind of a necessary evil. The topics revolved around things like payment security and compliance, and felt highly technical and really not aligned to high-level business issues, except for discussions around minimizing risk. So I would say the most exciting change happening in the retail landscape today is how payment is discussed, not just internally among industry players, but how it is focused on from a consumer perspective. Gone are the days where it's just a necessary final step for a shopper to get what they want. Now, the e-commerce payments toolkit is evolving to include one-click checkout, seamless mobile payment, and even opportunities for more immersive personalization. To really gauge what's happening in this landscape, what the consumer expects, and how brands can tap into tech partners and tech players to keep pace, I sat down with two incredible experts and partners really helping shape this next era. During BigCommerce's Big Summit in Austin, Texas a few weeks back, I sat down with Michaela Weber, SVP and GM of Payments at BigCommerce, and Mike Sutter, SVP and Head of Checkout for PayPal. Now, these two companies are separately doing some incredible work and thought leadership in this space, but together, BigCommerce and PayPal are also setting new expectations, not just for merchants, but for customers as well. Listen in to get both of their perspectives on the new trends, realities, and requirements for e-commerce checkout success.
Michaela, thanks so much for being on the show. It's great to be chatting with you today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So before we dig into the topic at hand, why don't we start with a little bit about you, your role at BigCommerce, and specifically thinking about your goals, your priorities in the day-to-day.
Sure. So I'm the Senior Vice President and I'm the General Manager of Payments at BigCommerce. And my team's role is really to ensure that our customers have optimized their payment solutions for their e-commerce store. So that includes managing relationships with payment providers, seeking out specialty solutions like fraud and buy now, pay later, and also providing consultative advice to our customers who might be looking to increase their conversion rates or solve for pain points, optimize their payment rates, things like that. So it's very much working hand in hand with our customer base to ensure that their e-commerce store is as optimized as possible when it comes to payments.
And it's been an interesting evolution. For me specifically, covering the retail space, I felt like payment for a long time, it was just something we had to cover, just to be transparent. But I've noticed that it's becoming more and more embedded into the customer experience. And when you think about brand experience, payment is part of that equation now increasingly. And your plans span sizes, categories, even global reach. So knowing that it's getting more embedded into customers' perceptions of the brand and their experience with the brand, what have been some of the most notable trends you've seen in the payment space? Again, knowing that you have to account for the business side, but also the customer side as well and their expectations.
I think a big overall trend is making payments as frictionless as possible. So one of the things that we've seen huge growth is in buy now, pay later. I know it's been around for a few years, but actually over half of BigCommerce customers who do have buy now, pay later turned on have two or more providers. So they recognize the value of having more than one BNPL because each BNPL has its own loyal customer base. So depending on the demographics of your customers, you may choose to have Affirm or an Afterpay or PayPal's pay later solution. So that's been really interesting. Fraud has also come up a lot in customer conversations. So there's been both a real increase in friendly fraud, where goods are delivered and then a customer may raise a chargeback, which is not actually true.
Yeah.
We see that quite a lot with some of our customers that work in high dollar goods, like for cool sneakers or limited products, electronics. Or there's also fraud attacks. And so we see a lot of customers looking to improve the way that they can combat chargebacks and fight fraud, and often working with a specialty provider, or some of their normal payment service provider may have an advanced fraud solution that can help them. The other kind of area we've seen a lot of growth is B2B payments. For a long time, B2B payments was a very, shall I say, vanilla invoicing, a lot of paper processes. And recently we've seen a lot of growth away from invoice-based into not only cards for B2B, but also things like B2B buy now, pay later, some of the working capital financing. So just really adding additional solutions that help a B2B business manage their payment stack a little bit more like a B2C business.
I was going to say, it seems like those lines are blurring quite a bit. So what people are experiencing every day as consumers, they're wanting that in their everyday lives, professional lives.
Exactly. And a lot of our customers at BigCommerce actually are hybrid. So you may have a direct-to-consumer business selling sunscreen to customers, and you may also be selling B2B into Sephora and department stores. And so that hybrid notion, you really bring that attention and focus on customer experience in the payment side to your B2B. So that's been a really exciting area to see some growth.
Oh, that's great. And I want to latch on to the point earlier around BNPL, because obviously that's an area we've been covering pretty extensively. And one of the common narratives is that younger consumers are more tech savvy, they're more willing to try these new services. But I'm wondering if there are any other nuances, because, I'm a firm believer that it's not necessarily like the age of the consumer, more so like the tech savviness. So are there any other payment preferences or expectations that you and your team have realized looking at that, demographic or level of tech savviness lens, like anything interesting that's been coming up?
So I would say, yes, there is a level of tech savviness, but actually when you talk to some of our BNPL partners, they do see some boomers having really high usage rates also of BNPL. So I think you don't want to underestimate your consumer base. We work with a kind of home and garden customer, and they didn't have Apple Pay. They recently turned on Apple Pay. And to be honest, we were all shocked to see that over 50% of their volume is through Apple Pay. And we realized that a lot of consumers are in their garden looking out saying, oh, that looks dead. I'm going to order a new one, or just shopping in a mobile environment. And they have quite an older demographic. So I think, yes, you need to know your customer, but also don't underestimate the tech savviness of some of the older consumers. On BNPL specifically, so we have seen increased average order values for our customers that use it, and also a conversion uplift. So when we think about ways you can think about optimizing your tech stack, it's absolutely worth exploring some of these options for your business. And if they're not right, you can change it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But we think it's worth testing. We've seen really positive results for our customers that have enabled some of those payment methods.
Got it. So it's something that you can test. You can kind of see how your consumer base responds. And
Turn
you
it
can
on,
always
absolutely.
adapt.
And I think it's a two-way door, right? It's a two-way door decision. So if you turn on a BNPL for 6 months and you feel it's not right for your business, we're happy to have that discussion with you. We've got our payments growth consultants on staff at BigCommerce who can support you in that. And you can always take things down. So I think it's really worth exploring and seeing if you're getting positive outcomes for your business.
Got it. So then to that end, how are you ensuring that you're empowering your clients in order to keep pace with all of these different payment trends, expectations? Obviously you have a team internally, but what does that look like in terms of building out your ecosystem of partners and folks you want to bring in?
Yes. So a lot of partners, right? We're always looking for new and innovative partners. One of our responsibilities is ensuring that our flagship, so our core payment integrations, are feature rich and resilient. We're making sure that we help our customers understand what's available to them to use on those. So PayPal as an example of one of our flagship partners. And then we're continuing to seek out new and innovative partners. One of the things that's so interesting about payments is it's very fast moving.
Yep.
And not only are we looking in big markets like the US, but we're also supporting our customers who are launching in Indonesia, launching in Latin America, exploring net new alternative payment methods. And so we're working closely with our core payment processors and also new payment partners to help support that global expansion.
That's great. So digging a little bit deeper into that, is there anything that you and your team are watching at a global level? Because I always find it interesting to look at like the different apps that are resonating at a global scale, the level of comfort that's happening in different territories. So is there anything notable that you guys are tracking or keeping tabs on from a trend perspective?
So accelerated checkout is definitely a huge trend for us on a global level. This notion of frictionless checkout, having a personalized checkout experience, checking out quickly, because we know that the longer your checkout takes, the higher your customer dropout rates are. So if I'm a business, I need to ensure I can get both guest customers, and that's where a solution like PayPal Fastlane, the new accelerated checkout solution from PayPal comes in. So I need to get both guests and known customers through my checkout as fast as possible with limited friction. And so really focusing on how do I reduce the checkout time and the potential friction points I'm raising in checkout. And that's true globally and across demographics. Everyone wants to get their e-commerce transaction done quickly and cleanly and kind of move on with their day. So accelerated checkout is a huge trend for us. And that's where we've been really excited to see PayPal or Fastlane by PayPal launch and have some great results for our customers that are already live on that solution.
Very exciting. Well, Michaela, thank you so much for taking the time out to chat with me. A lot of really interesting trends that we're tracking, and I'm excited to see what's next for BigCommerce and all the great partners we bring in.
Thanks so much, Alicia.
Mike, thanks so much for being on the show. Great to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
So we have a lot to dig into, but we'll go through this as fast and easy as possible. But I'd love for us to start with just your perception of, how the checkout experience has evolved. What are the new requirements for success? What are the clear benchmarks, I guess, that merchants really need to keep pace with?
Yeah, I would say from a consumer behavior perspective, one of the key changes is that we're really seeing consumers push back against the idea of creating an account and having to log in at checkout. In fact, if you look at the stats, you can see that about 40% of consumers really prefer using a guest checkout where they don't need to log in. And 72% say that even if they have an account with a merchant, they'd rather just go through guest checkout. And what we hear from merchants is they're seeing that play out in the behavior of consumers where more and more are going through the guest checkout experience. And I think it just points to the reality that consumers want a really frictionless experience. What's contradictory to that, they also expect it to be personalized. So
right.
They want you to recognize who they are and really understand their needs and make it very easy for them to get maximum value out of the transaction. And I think that's another key reason why you see it more and more embedded into the overall experience and how that consumer finds the right product and gets the best deal they can when they're buying. And then I think the third piece is all about speed, where I think you see it, the longer it takes to check out, the more likely the consumer is to bounce. And so speed is really critical part of the component overall in delivering a great checkout experience.
So taking all three of these areas into account, especially the subtle contradiction, I guess, of the first two, right? How is PayPal keeping pace with that, almost setting a new standard for checkout experience by offering new services, new capabilities? Because I feel like when you hear a payment, a lot of folks, automatically think PayPal. So how are you guys achieving that?
Well, first I'd talk about we're redesigning the PayPal checkout experience. And so we really focused, again, from a speed perspective, we've rebuilt it on modern architecture that really reduces the amount of time it takes to move through checkout. So we're seeing latency that's 50% lower than it was before, and we see further opportunity to improve that. So it loads really fast and the consumer can move through the experience. I think the second piece is from a login perspective, they want a frictionless login experience. And so you see the shift towards biometric login where they're no longer required to remember a password. They just use their face or their fingerprint and they can move right through the experience. So we're enabling that for our PayPal checkout experience. And then when you get to the pay sheet where they're actually looking at the design, we really simplified the design to accomplish two primary objectives. So first, we want the consumer to be able to quickly scan the sheet and complete a one-click checkout. And we expect that about 3/4 of the time, that's what they're going to do. Also, we wanted to better highlight our pay later option, so make them easy to discover and really merchandise the value proposition when it's the right type of purchase in the right context. The consumer can decide, do they want to pay monthly, they want to pay in 4 installments. Really, they have all of that available to them at a glance with the goal of like, it loads quickly, they can quickly find what's the best option from them, and they can move forward. On the personalization side of things, we've really been focused on re-engaging our consumers throughout the journey. So we've launched package tracking as a product that really helps engage the consumer and give them the peace of mind knowing that the product's going to be delivered. We've launched our new Smart Receipt, which really confirms the purchase they've made, but also gives them the opportunity to discover related products and deepen their relationship with the merchant they just purchased from. And we've also reimagined the PayPal app, where we're really driving engagement, where consumers can discover new products, discover deals, all of that about how do we provide a complete end-to-end commerce journey for them that really is tailored to their needs. And so that's how we're thinking about it on the PayPal checkout side. There are instances where consumers choose not to hit the yellow button. We don't recommend that. We think everybody should use PayPal, but if they choose not to use the yellow button, that's really where the fast lane experience comes in, where we're really focused on speed in that instance and helping them get through the checkout process. And so for a consumer, it's all about, you create a Fastlane profile. Once it's created, anywhere you shop that accepts Fastlane, you can speed through the process. We autofill the checkout. And again, you can complete, it really reduces that time to complete checkout, and the consumer is no longer required to enter any information. And so that's really, if you think about that package together, it's really meant to service the needs for consumers in all contexts, and then for merchants, give them the maximum value from the PayPal network.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting that you guys are getting into that post-purchase experience, right? It's not just about winning the conversion. It's all the things that happen after the fact that could be actually a pretty significant loyalty driver, because it builds that confidence, it creates that transparency that so many consumers are looking for.
Yeah, and you see today, our lives are broken into smaller and smaller time increments where people may want to complete one part of their overall shopping journey, buy one item, knowing there are additional items, but they may want to complete just that step. And then we want to have the opportunity to really engage them and help them if they have additional purchases they want to make as part of that. And then also it helps to really reinforce the value of the merchant they just purchased from.
Yeah. I want to go back to biometrics, because I feel like there were so many debates around, are consumers going to use this, are going to feel comfortable with it? I feel like it's pretty ever present now. I mean, what are you and then the PayPal team seeing in terms of consumer adoption, comfort levels, and is it because the value prop around security is so established now and it kind of reinforces that comfort level?
Yeah, I think there's two elements to the story. Number one, we talked about it before. Nobody wants to enter a password, nor do they want their password and information out on the dark web. And so I think that combination of convenience and security, I think, is really resonating. I think people are using Face ID, using biometric login in more and more places. So they're starting to feel comfortable with the technology. And I think you look at the benefit, it's instant authentication, which is really nice. Then if you think about that offline to online kind of hybrid scenario, once you're logged in with your biometrics on a device, it opens up opportunities for touchless and contactless payments being made online and in store. And so I think that convenience also really resonates. I think from a security perspective, your biometrics are unique to every individual. So it just makes it harder for the fraudsters to really get after consumer information. And I think finally, the last push over the hump is really, you're seeing multi-factor authentication becoming a global regulatory requirement. And as that increasingly becomes true, biometric login and really confirming it's you becomes a really key pillar of that regulatory framework. And so I think these things in combination are just getting people comfortable with biometric login, and we see and you hear others talking about how that population of users is really growing pretty rapidly.
That makes a lot of sense. And we've been talking so much about AI and its impact on not just customer experiences, but also retail operations, how productive and effective, teams can be. How is PayPal tracking and responding to this particular sector? Are you guys trying to put a stake in the ground in the AI world just yet, or is that a work in progress?
Yeah, I say we're not yet sharing what we have in mind from the standpoint of PayPal and the wallet and Fastlane, but I will say we're following very closely the trends that we see and really thinking about ways we can make the the checkout experience even more personalized and more intelligent for our consumers. And we'll probably have more to share on that in the future.
All right, got it. And then you mentioned Fastlane. So tell us a little bit about Fastlane itself and kind of how it's helping PayPal carve a really distinct place in this space of like payment experience. And you mentioned speed, efficiency, seamlessness. What should the merchants listening know about Fastlane and I guess its impact on the bottom line of it all, right?
Yeah, I would say when we set out to create Fastlane, we were really focused on two areas of opportunity. So number one, we wanted to bring the power of the PayPal network to really allow consumers to create a profile and then let them have a streamlined checkout experience based on that. And then for the merchants themselves, we wanted to make sure that the Fastlane experience was very flexibly integrated into their checkout so that it kind of strikes that balance of bringing the power of the PayPal network, but also giving merchants flexibility in how it integrates into their checkout experience. And so those were key areas. When you look at the value proposition for consumers, again, it's very easy to adopt. You go through a normal checkout flow, you just opt in, and then you have a profile created. And everywhere you shop thereafter that accepts Fastlane, you basically can go through a much more streamlined experience. And then for merchants, what it really means is that if you think about conversion, you're talking about guest checkout conversion that's in the 40-50% range. And we talk about how we're seeing conversion rates that are around the 80% mark. And so You really see that impact. And I think it has an impact in both two areas, particularly if you have new customers to your site, giving them a really great experience gives that merchant the opportunity to build a relationship with that consumer going forward. And by reducing the friction, you're maintaining that opportunity for those who may have previously bounced. And then for those who just prefer a guest checkout experience, it just continues to move them through checkout at a rapid pace. And again, they're still sharing their contact information. You still have an opportunity to reach out with them and build a deeper relationship. And so we really think that's important, like providing the value in checkout and also allowing the merchants to continue to build their relationship with the consumer.
And giving the consumer that flexibility to kind of choose their own journey in a way.
Yeah, exactly. We want the consumer, in whatever context, whatever the consumer's needs are, we really want to meet them where they are and meet their needs in that moment. And we understand that can differ in a given context.
Got it. So really big things happening now, things in the works that you can't share just yet. But I mean, how else are you, the team at PayPal, working with partners like BigCommerce, really to kind of forge this new era of e-commerce experience and specifically payment experience? What's coming up?
Yeah, I would say first, we're really focused on, we just made Fastlane generally available in the US. So we're working across our partners and merchants to really scale the product and make it available on more and more merchants so that consumers and merchants get the benefit of Fastlane for the holiday season. So I'd say that's the first area of focus for us. In addition to that, we're partnering with our early adopter partners and merchants as we start to test the new PayPal checkout experience and start to roll that out. So I would say both the PayPal checkout experience and the app and then Fastlane really focused on, we've been working on these for the last 12 or so months and really now focused on how do we really bring them to market in the US and beyond being the key focus area.
Holiday will be really interesting to get some insight and results on because at that time, people want to get done. They want speed, efficiency, and they want maximum value. So excited to see what comes from that.
Yeah, we're excited as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Mike, thanks so much for taking the time out.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Many thanks to Michaela and Mike for sitting down with me and talking shop.